Hello, everybody. I think we're going to get started here. So welcome. Thank you all for coming. We are going to talk today about trauma in students and how we incorporate social emotional learning and mindfulness with that. It just takes one adult to change the trajectory of a child's life, just one. So that is something that we are all really passionate about. My name is Dana. I am here today with Robbie and Michelle, and we are all teachers at Kuleana Education on the Big Island. So we are really passionate about what we do. We have seen the proven results of what we do in our kids who have gone through our school. And we are going to share the brain science of trauma and how we support these kids through everything we do at our school. So a little bit about me and why I started teaching. When I started, I wasn't a teacher. And we had this student, we just call him Student X, and we had this teacher that we'll call Mr. M. And he would bring the student up to the office, and he would bring him to the principal, and I would be in the office. In the beginning, when we started the school, I worked there for free. I worked from home. And I was helping the school get started back then. So he would bring the student up and tell the principal how awful the student was, all the things the student did wrong in front of the student. And it broke my heart. I never understood it. And when I tried to talk to this teacher, he would tell me I had no idea what I was talking about. I didn't know what it was like to be in a classroom. It was too hard to manage. And I thought, I'm going to prove him wrong. So I went back to school. I got my degrees. I ended up getting my doctorate, so now I'm actually the principal, but I stay in the classroom because that's where my passion is. So I still teach. And we have a team now of people who are just as passionate about what we do. And we have proven that we can support these students in the classroom with our techniques. What works for trauma kids works for all kids. So understanding these trauma-informed practices is really beneficial because it's going to support all your students. All kids belong here is something I believe. All kids belong in our school. I never want to hear that a student doesn't belong. That is something that I will never stand for. What we all need to figure out is how can we support them. And that is something at our school we do as a team. If we're struggling with something going on with a student, we all get together and we figure out what can we do? What can we change within our environment to help better support this child? It's totally okay to say that you're struggling with a child and to ask for help. We don't always have the answers. We don't always know what to do. And sometimes our teammates do, right? So if we lean on each other and we ask for help, we can find those solutions that work for these kids. And it's not easy to support these kids that are struggling, but it does change their lives. It really makes an impact. So we can't talk about trauma without talking about ACEs. Most of you have probably heard about ACEs. Those are adverse childhood experiences. Kids with 4 or more ACEs are more likely to abuse drugs, have mental health issues, diseases, even early death. So having these adverse childhood experiences can have really negative impacts on kids. And these days, kids have a lot of adverse childhood experiences. They can have mental health issues within the family, divorce, abuse, neglect. There's all sorts of things that go on with these kids. And a lot of times they have a lot of different ACEs. So knowing a child's story and what's going on with them is really important, and understanding their ACEs and what they are and how many of them is really critical to being able to support these kids. What's not talked about as much yet, which is starting to be talked about, are these BCEs, right, which are these benevolent childhood experiences. And these are the positive experiences that can actually help to counteract the ACEs. So these can protect their health, and they can lead to more positive outcomes. They can actually neutralize the effect of some of these ACEs. And these are things like having a supportive caregiver, liking school, having a routine or a structure, having a belief system that gives them comfort. These BCEs are really critical, and something I always say is just having that one adult in a child's corner is enough to help counteract those ACEs. You can be enough being there for that child. You can make that difference, right? And sometimes we don't always have that culture in a school, right? We can't change everybody, and that's a challenge. It took us a while at our school. We have a complete team now who does believe in everything we do, but it wasn't always like that, and it took a really long time. Start with the winners. Start with the ones who believe. Don't waste the time on the ones who you're not going to change, because you're kind of wasting your breath on that. Start with the ones who believe to start building that culture around you. The single most common factor for children and teens who develop the capacity to overcome serious hardship is having at least one stable and committed relationship with a supportive parent, caregiver, or other adult. Just one. And that's you. We're all in a school, whether it's a counselor or a teacher or whatever your role is within a school, you're all working with kids, and this can be you. Just one adult. So, okay, what is trauma? Trauma can be any experience that leaves a person feeling hopeless or helpless, fearing for their survival, their safety, and it can be real or perceived, right? So if it's traumatic for a child, it's trauma. There's different kinds. It can be single exposure. It can be repeated, toxic stress, developmental trauma disorder, which is kind of like a PTSD. There's different types of trauma. And we need to be trauma informed, which is kind of like a buzzword now in education, to be trauma informed. But we'll talk about what that is. It's a mindset. So it's being curious about what's going on with a child. It's saying when we see a child who's dysregulated, it's not labeling the child or judging the child or what's wrong with the child. It's what is going on with this child? What experiences have this child had that's leading to this meltdown? What is their story? It's understanding what the child's strengths are. It's really trying to understand what's behind the behavior, right? Because there's always something that's behind it. And we have to go beyond being trauma-informed and integrate what we know, right? It's one thing to know something, but then when it plays out in our classrooms or in our schools, and we're seeing that child melting down, dysregulated, we need to make sure that we're really holding to that curiosity. What is going on with this child? How can we support this child? Not getting upset because the child is melting down. Okay, so Dr. Siegel has this hand model of the brain. You may know of it. And we teach this to students, and by we I mean Mr. Robbie in social emotional learning. But this is the spinal cord, and this is the brain stem. So the brain stem has your basic functions like breathing and heart rate. This is the amygdala. So this is where you sense fear, danger, right? Something's going on. And this is your prefrontal cortex. So this is your thinking brain. This is where you're able to be rational and kind and regulate your emotions, right? And so what happens is kids flip their lid, right? They get dysregulated. And this prefrontal cortex flies off. They don't have access to that thinking brain when that happens, right? They only have access to down here, their very primal functions. Now, this is helpful. The reason this happens is, right, when we're in danger, something in life happens and we're actually in danger, right, we don't want to rationally think, what should I do, right? We want to be able to react, and that's why our bodies are like this. But what happens with trauma kids is their amygdala gets overactive. They flip their lid often, right, more often than they should, and they're just reacting from down here. And we can't have a rational conversation with a child when their lid is flipped, We have got to regulate them and get their brain back on before we're able to talk to them about what's going on, talk about any consequences, do anything with rational thought. We have to regulate them first and get this prefrontal cortex back on. Okay, so how trauma affects the brain. Trauma actually can change your brain. So it can change the prefrontal cortex, which can lead kids to have difficulty concentrating in class. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that. Difficulty processing information, a hard time making decisions. It puts your amygdala in overdrive, where you're constantly saying danger, danger to very ordinary situations. It changes your hippocampus, which is kind of where your memory is, and you have trouble distinguishing between the past and the present. So they can be easily triggered. It changes your anterior cingulate cortex, which is where they can get dysregulated. It can affect their ability to suppress thoughts and feelings and actions. So it actually changes the brain. So that's where we have to come in and really teach them these skills within social emotional learning and mindfulness, and give them the tools to be able to self-regulate and help themselves to help their brain, because their brain has actually been changed by the trauma. So I always say our number one goal is self-regulation, because what these kids with trauma usually struggle with most is self-regulation. So social emotional learning is going to give them tools to be able to self-regulate. They need to learn this. And mindfulness is going to give them techniques such as breathing, yoga, journaling, all that stuff. And they really do go hand in hand. At our school, kids take both social emotional learning and mindfulness classes twice a week. So they're in actual classrooms taking these classes 2 times a week, every week. Okay, so what do we do? A student slip their lid, they're losing their minds. What do? We need to co-regulate. We need to show them how to calm down. We can't tell them. You can't just say calm down. If you've ever been upset and someone said, hey, calm down, does not work, right? You actually have to show them. Kids are not able to think and learn when they're dysregulated. Make eye contact, say their name, get on their level, talk about something that interests them, right? Connection, can we say connection before direction? Say, tell me more about what's going on, tell me more. Have interest in them. I love the rainbow game. I play that with them. I'll say, hey, do you see something red in the room or outside or wherever we are? And then it kind of takes their mind, right? They have to use their prefrontal cortex to do that. Hey, do you see something orange, yellow? I'll go through the whole rainbow. Food, too. Food is great. You can't chew and swallow if you're dysregulated. So instead of using food as a reward, it's a great regulation strategy. Try to get them to eat something. Really good strategy. We've got to get them regulated before we can do anything else. I'm going to talk a little bit about consequences, rewards, and punishments. This is something I'm really passionate about because I've had parents say to me over the years, well, don't you hold these kids accountable, right? I don't believe in punishment, and I'm going to explain why. I do believe in accountability, right? But they have to be regulated for that. But consequences don't need to be immediate, okay? If a kid is not regulated, they're not going to be in a space to even understand the consequence. They're not going to be able to understand any harm they've done. So giving them a consequence when they're in a dysregulated state is completely pointless. They're not learning anything. It's not going to change their behavior. We've got to regulate them, and once they're regulated, then we can have that conversation about any harm they've done and how we're going to repair that harm. We always have them repair the harm, and that is individualized. There's no black and white way we do that. There's a lot of ways that we do that with students, and if you guys have questions at the end, we can have a Q&A about that. But we do have them repair the harm. Rewards and punishments generally don't work for trauma kids. And a lot of this comes from the early behaviorism work and operant conditioning from Skinner. This is like, you do something positive to get a reward, or you don't do something negative because you don't want a punishment. But this came from dogs and rats and pigeons, right, from Skinner's early work. This is very archaic, right? And the problem with Skinner's early work is he only used external stimuli for these animals that were involved in these studies. Internal processes had nothing to do with it. And humans are very internal. And kids with trauma have a lot going on internally, right? Plus these brain changes that have gone on with whatever trauma they've encountered. So using rewards and punishments generally are not a good strategy for kids who have been through trauma. I always like the quote, discipline is helping a child solve a problem. Punishment is making a child suffer for having a problem. To raise problem solvers, focus on solutions and not retribution. A little more about that. Children with trauma history generally don't benefit from rewards and punishments because we're not punishing the behavior, we're punishing their emotional dysregulation. We're punishing them for a skill they don't have. They're not able to regulate, so they're dysregulated, and then they're being punished for it. We need to teach them how to regulate instead of punishing them for something they're not able to do. And adults often punish because we think, if we take enough away, if we take their iPad away, or we take their recess away, or we take this away, right, they're going to learn to make appropriate choices, right? But you can take everything away from a child, but if they don't have the skill, they're still not going to be able to do it. We have to teach them the skills. Another thing, Jodi Carrington, if you don't know her, she's an amazing psychologist up in Canada who works with schools. When compliance for people we love or teach is predicated by what they stand to lose, they're never motivated by respect. They're motivated by fear, and then kids are saying, what happens if I don't? Here's an example. If you don't like talking in front of people, and I say, I'm not going to let you see your loved one until you come up here in front of 1,000 people and talk, you're probably going to come up in front of 1,000 people and talk, right? But you're not doing it out of respect, you're doing it out of fear, right? We can get kids to do anything, right? Anyone will comply with a big enough stick, but they're not complying out of respect, they're complying out of fear. We need to build those relationships with the kids so that they're complying out of respect and not fear. So a little bit more. So the behaviors that we're trying to change with rewards or punishments are generally things kids can't do, not things they won't do, because they're skills they lack. Children who have trauma are generally in a survival mode, so they're generally in that downstairs brain or that their lid is flipped, so they're not thinking from their prefrontal cortex. Trauma kids generally don't have control over much, right? So when you're trying to use a reward system, they can't control it because they can't control their self-regulation enough to get the rewards. So that either leaves them really frustrated or they just don't care. They're just not going to be motivated by it because they figure they can't control it and they're not going to want to do it anyway. You can kind of have two spectrums on that. It can actually increase their anxiety and trigger a trauma response in these kids. It can increase their dependence on external validation, which is something we don't want because kids with trauma often lack the internal validation, and that's something we want to improve in these kids. It often takes the focus away from teaching a child what they should be doing or why they should be doing it, right? From teaching the kids the right skills. And we really want to teach them the skills, not punish them for not having them. Punishment doesn't give kids tools to meet their needs, right? We want to give them the tools to get these needs met in a positive way. And constant punishment, and we see this at our school from kids who are punished outside of school and then come to school. teaches kids, I'm going to be in trouble anyway. Why bother trying? Doesn't even matter, right? So we really try to lift those kids up so that they don't feel like, at least in our environment, they're not in trouble, so they don't have that attitude, and we can see that improvement. One other thing we see a lot with trauma kids is that they lie. And we often wonder, why are they always telling lies? But a lot of times kids with traumas don't have the same opportunities or experiences as other kids, right? So other kids are coming to school talking about sports practices, their family trip, something amazing that happened, right? So then the kid who doesn't have those opportunities or experiences, they come to school with, I got a pet gorilla, or I went to Disneyland yesterday, or, I won the surfing contest last week. So something that I always believe in is we focus on the child, not on the lie. If it matters to them, it matters. We really try to focus on the child more than the lie because we understand what's behind it. Most of you are probably familiar with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but he has this hierarchy of needs, the physiological needs, which are air, water, breathing, all of that. We have our safety needs, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. So our children need these needs met before they're able to learn. And I promise you, kids are going to learn. When they're ready, they're going to learn. You can't stop that part, but they need their basic needs met. So if a kid is in the classroom and they haven't slept, or they're starving, or they don't feel safe, or they were being screamed at home that morning, or their parents were fighting the night before, or whatever it is, they're not going to be in a place to learn. And we may just need to give them love today so that tomorrow when they come, they can learn. So the lesson that we're doing today is less important than making sure that their hierarchy of needs is met. We will meet their learning needs as they get their other needs met. So we say Maslow before Bloom. Our basic needs really need to be met. So we are going to play a little game. The goal of this game, you all have one on your table, is to build a brain. You're going to build it as tall as possible, and this is going to represent its functionality. And you're going to build it as sturdy as possible, and this is going to represent its ability to withstand stress. And our goal for you is to build understanding of the powerful role of experiences on your early brain development, what promotes it, what derails it, what the consequences are for society. So everyone has a piece of paper on their table, and you're going to need one person that's able to write. And I'm going to walk through the first few steps with you. But the step one, you're going to roll the dice, and this is to get your foundation of the brain. So whatever number you get, up here you'll see there's little pictures of what your foundation's going to be. And if it's a white color, it's just what's my word? I can't think of it. Pipe cleaner, sorry. And if it's a dark piece, it's a pipe cleaner within a straw. Okay, so it's a little more sturdy. So go ahead and roll your die. If you want to join another group, you can, however you want to do it. But roll the die. And you can circle up here which foundation you have, and you can build your base of your brain.
All right, we have the floor. So, wait, what does that mean? Wait, 3 pioneers, right? If the black represents pioneers?
Yeah. Pipe cleaner, the dark one is a pipe cleaner in a straw.
In a straw.
So the foundation of your brain is kind of the luck of the draw, right? It's what you're born with. The dark one, the pipe cleaner goes inside the straw.
We couldn't get smaller. So once we do the
And
base,
so-
we can't do any change.
For the next step, you're gonna roll the die one more time. And whatever number you get, you're gonna take that many straws and you're just gonna put them aside. And you can use them at any point during the game to strengthen your pipe cleaner. So go ahead and roll the die one more time.
Really good.
And you'll put that many straws aside for later. So that straw, or those straws, are your social supports you have during life. So some of us have a lot of social supports, some of us not so many.
Can we put the straws on the base?
No, your base is what you're born with. That's genetic lottery. As we build our brain, you may not make your base bigger. When we build our brain, you may go up from the base, right? You may add to your base going up, but you may not make the foundation bigger. Okay? So step 3, what you're gonna do is you all see year 1 in your cards. And I purposely have the cards upside down under the label, because you don't wanna look. But you're gonna draw a random card from under year 1. The blue cards are positive life experiences, and you're able to read on the card what those are. The red cards are negative or toxic life experiences. And the yellow cards are tolerable life experiences. So when you take your card, you're going to mark on here. You don't need to write out what the card is. But you can mark on here whether it's positive, tolerable, or toxic. We need to keep track because as we get tolerable cards, we'll need to see which way they go.
So,
If you drew a blue card, a positive card, you will take a pipe cleaner with a straw and put it through the straw. If you drew a red card, a toxic card, you only get a pipe cleaner. If you drew a tolerable card, you're going to roll the die. And if it's an even number, you get a pipe cleaner within a straw. If it's an odd number, you only get the pipe cleaner. So go ahead and do that. Go ahead and figure out if you have just a pipe cleaner and straw.
we can use the straw, there's no one straw.
And once you do that, you can draw your last 2 cards from year 1. If I'm going too fast, you
Yeah, so
call.
you guys want to draw a card? Draw blue. Oh,
So you'll take 3 total cards from year 1. So once you've drawn the first one, then you can draw 2 more. And so when you've drawn all 3 of your cards from year 1, so you'll end up with 3 total cards from year 1. If you have yellow cards, you will count up this is throughout the game. If you get yellow cards, you're going to count up your total blue and red cards, positive and toxic cards. If you've had more positive life experiences, you'll take a pipe cleaner through a straw for that card, for the yellow card. If you've had more toxic life experiences, you just get a pipe cleaner. If they're even, you'll roll the die. Does that make sense? Each year, because you're going to do 1 year at a time. We're just going to do year 1 right now.
And then we build.
And then once you've taken all 3 cards from year 1, you're going to build up from your brain. And you need to combine your pipe cleaners at both ends of year 1.
there we go, and drop over here, guys. When are we gonna catch a break?
Did you have a
We're
question?
only 1 year old.
So hopefully you are all reading some of these experiences that are affecting the brain development on your cards.
Fire. Alright, we're on year 5. We're getting, wait, what? Hey, why is there only 3 cards? We're losing cards.
You're on your 5.
Wait, they're all,
What year are you on over here?
is year 5 all? Year 5 is all yellow. How's that possible?
What year are you on over here?
Okay, so we got 1. Yeah, we're getting a lot of disasters. Oh. Parent loses job probably from the disaster. That's right. This is what happens. There's a show. Alright, so we got 1 positive.
There you go.
And we got 1 tolerable. Oh no. Just 1 pipe cleaner. Alright, so what shall we do? Do we go higher?
If anyone gets to year 6, let me know. I'll let you know what to do next. You're on year 6? Okay, I'm going to talk about year 6. It is up here too. If you forget or I can come around and help. So don't worry if you're not there yet. But when you get to year 6, you're no longer in that formative development stage. So you no longer get those straws to support your brain. So when you choose a positive card, you get a pipe cleaner. But when you choose a toxic card, you get a weight. Those are life stresses. And you have to hang that weight from the tallest part of the brain. If you get a tolerable card, it's the same thing. You look at how many positive, how many toxic experiences you've had. More positive, you can take a pipe cleaner. More toxic, you can take a weight. Okay?
Alright. Let's do this.
3.
Okay. Just kidding. Oh, so we got 2 tolerables. So we actually have more positives than negatives, right?
Oh,
So that means we get, yeah, but because we got the question mark, they're not toxic. So we get, look back and see how many toxics we have.
oh, yes, right.
We count this.
But you're looking at the over the lifespan.
Year 6. We're positive.
Okay, so when you get a yellow card, you want to look at the yellow.
Depending on if you have 1
So
positive,
you get yellow, you want to look at your whole
it
life.
looks like we have more positive. So we would get right?
Right, right, because that's going to affect, right, because if year
Unless
1,
the yellow ones count.
right, your Korea might get more positive, but what's really happening in early years is really going to affect that brain development.
Tolerable,
Does that
right?
make sense?
Not
So, totally okay. That's why we're marking, because then you look back and see over the lifespan, is it then more
How
positive?
many just put?
Yeah, so then for each one, you can spend more positive, you choose the,
Well, it'd either be 2, 3, or 1. Wait, hold on.
you don't need to roll the dice if you've had more positive. If you've had more positive, then you just automatically take it, only if it's equal positive toxic, then you roll the dice.
But the tolerable doesn't matter. Dana, the tolerable doesn't matter. For if you don't count the tolerables, you just count the toxic versus positive.
Right.
Okay,
If
we're
you
doing
get a
right.
tolerable.
So we got 1 more. Pipe cleaner.
Alright, he looks pretty strong.
Oh yeah. Well, no.
I'm ready to get some.
Well, let's go higher, but like with.
So the game does end when either you're structure collapses, or you finish your 8. So we have brain.
Yeah, or even like,
Straight. Or even the front. Yeah. Yeah. You can do whatever you want.
Year 5 is your last year with straws. Year 6 is no more
Right.
straws. Because your brain is
Only 6 years old. Okay.
safe home provided while rebuilding from natural disaster on finally.
Oh no. 2 weights. We got 2 weights. Alright, so how are we gonna do this?
I don't know,
One
one pipe.
Oh wait. Wait, we're supposed to. That's funny. You're right. That's gotta go. I was like, why is there so many? Okay, let's do it. Yeah, we keep it.
What is that?
It's the wrong one. That's why we have nothing for year 5. Okay.
Yeah,
No, but we need one more.
I think that one.
Okay, so we have 1 weight and 2 pipe cleaners. So weight and
Put the pipe there first.
okay. What do you want to? Well, what do you think the weight first and then end up with the pipe cleaner? We wait till wait, which one are we on? Wait till you're 8 and then we go.
I like this side, it's like kind of
Oh, they got weights on I think it has to be the tallest point. I feel like our top point. Yeah. All right. Ready for the last year of our life? We are. We're on year 8. School lunch program. Oh, here we go. All right, so that means we have 2 pipe cleaners. Do we go up? Is that it? Or are we getting tripped? Just because we turned 9, we can get it off.
okay, so let's
How do you say your name? What? And then what was your name? Jane. Karina. Davide. Or maybe like this, so then it's
like a bell.
like a, yeah, like a, so then you bring it together. So even if the weight does come on it, it'll be strong. Yeah. Yeah.
something to think about, and are any other groups done? I know some of you are still working.
One more year.
Okay, you guys are done over here? Are you guys done too? Okay, so I'll talk a little bit since a few of you are done. Keep going if you're still working on your brain. But something to think about. What is the impact of early childhood experiences on the outcomes across the lifespan? Any thoughts about your brains from the experiences that impact the development of it? Do you guys have any thoughts? Yeah.
I was just saying, like, the visual is
The visual?
insane how much this happiness can kind of like foundation building up.
Yeah. Yeah, we can see how that foundation gets a little rocky as we're trying to build upon a foundation that's not solid, right? Because it's been impacted by genetic lottery. A lot of times it is that trauma, right, that makes it a rocky foundation. The table in the back was telling us it makes you see things, right? It makes you really see. Can you use your words, how you said that? I'm sorry, what was that? You were just saying it makes you see. I don't know if I say your words wrong. Would you be open to sharing what you just said?
Oh,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. We did this at a faculty meeting at a middle school, and it was actually really eye-opening for a lot of teachers and even us as district staff, because while we were going through this process, we could see the ahas coming through and the tears. There were people crying because, they're going through this, and some of it can be triggering because maybe these are some of your own experiences. But then what we did at the end is we put all of these frames on a big table and we said, this represents your class. You're not seeing what's coming into your class because it's inside of their brain. But look at how different everybody's brain is based on all of these life experiences and things that they've had happen to them, whether good or bad. And that was like the eye-opening moment and kind of understanding the brain science behind it and why maybe your students are acting out in a certain way. That I like what you said, it's not a wall. You can't.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I didn't mean to say you'll stop, but I didn't want to say it wrong. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it really does give a visual to that. Yeah, anyone else have anything from the game they want to share? Or? No?
Real quick,
Yeah.
for ours, I know we got fortunate with having the maximum amount of extra structure, so just looking at our structure, it's more so really important to see how valuable or significant those extra supports are.
Yeah, so social supports can really make a difference. Even when you have that trauma, even when you have poor genetic luck, social supports make a difference. It's something I believe in really passionately because I've had that in my life. The power of one person in your life that can make a difference. I believe in it so strongly. And it's something that I wish all teachers could understand. The power of their love, the power of their caring. It makes such an impact on children. Just you. You can make that difference. Yeah, thank you. Social supports make a big difference. So I'm going to let you all finish up your brain, but I am going to let Robbie come up here and talk a little bit.
Good morning, good morning. So I am Mr. Robbie, is what the kids call me, and I am the social emotional teacher. I've been doing this at our school for 4 or 5 years now. But before that, I worked in childcare since I was like 16, volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club. I'm really passionate about giving kids a chance to play and learn in safe environments and helping them to grow. So I'll try not to go too much into what SEL is, because I figure most people here already have a good grasp on what that means. But it's just about teaching kids to practice emotional intelligence and to build beneficial social skills, to be able to talk to other people while also managing themselves. There's a great quote by Plato that all learning has an emotional base. Emotions are how our brain functions. It's what underlines what we do, why we do it. All of that is based around emotions. Even the most logical people are very emotional. They just channel their emotions through logic. Learning is an emotional act. So for SEL, we want to make sure that the kids' emotions are handled so that they can learn. Oh, wrong. Yeah, so it helps to manage difficult emotions, to help them set goals, to make beneficial decisions. A study by the Child Mind Institute found that practicing SEL in their own lives and throughout their academic careers led to self-efficiency, high self-esteem, problem solving. As they grew up, they had less stress, less depression, and as this depression epidemic goes around, and especially with our kids, we want to make sure that we're giving them the tools necessary to be successful in their academic careers, but also in their personal lives. At our school, we follow the CASTLE program. It is a great program that's nationwide that focuses on SEL as well as other academic activities. But we make sure that at our school we hit these 5 areas of growth, so self-awareness, understanding who they are, self-management, being able to manage their emotions, the social awareness, the ability to navigate social situations, relationship skills, and all that leads to positive decision-making. This is done in the classrooms, which then spreads to their communities, to other classrooms, to the school-wide, which then also spreads to their home lives. So much of what we do at school doesn't matter if they go home and it's all bunk. So we want to make sure that what we're giving them works anywhere, not just in the classroom. We also follow their SAFE model of teaching. It's great to be able to talk about the SEL stuff, but in the classroom, what does that mean? So we want to make sure that all our activities are sequenced, that they are connected and coordinated, they're active. Children learn best through activities, through play. So we want to make sure that kids aren't just sitting and being talked to, which is a problem I get into because I love talking about it. And so I'll just chant at them and they'll be like, I don't know what any of that means. We want to make sure it's focused because, again, SEL is very broad, lots of emotions, lots of social awareness goes into it. So we want to make sure that when we're teaching it, we're focusing on particular aspects, specific ideas at a time, because otherwise it's just so much. And then we'll make sure it's explicit, again, targeted and talked about, made aware. I like to follow Marshall Rosenberg's method of communication here. He is a behavioral psychologist who spent X amount of, I want to say like 20 years, following a group of families around and documenting how they interacted, how they communicated, how the parents taught, and how the parents disciplined, all these things, and kind of started to develop a way of speaking that encapsulates all of what I like to teach with SEL. And it's this four method way of teaching where it's when this thing occurred, I felt, using an emotional word, I need, using a universal need, and then making a request. Can we do this? He found that in this, it resolved violence or conflict. And in this context, conflict here is any type of negative interaction, any type of thing where it's you versus me and we're debating or fighting or whatever. Talking like this helped to dissolve that, where it wasn't us fighting, we were just expressing ourselves and figuring things out. And so I'll mention this throughout the rest of the slides, but this is kind of what I hope kids are able to walk away being able to understand and to do. So I start with building a strong emotional vocabulary. This is to help kids express themselves, to understand what they're feeling and to be able to say it. We want them to know that as they grow up and things get more complicated and nuanced, they have the right words to describe what's going on inside of them. You can't express yourself if you don't have the tools to express. So we want to make sure that they understand what words mean, what emotions are, and how to express them. So I start by making sure that it's understood all emotions are acceptable. They're all good. It's fine if you feel angry. It's good if you feel sad. Your brain is doing that for a reason. And we tend to, in our society, push those feelings away until they come out, right? We don't want to be angry. You can't be angry right now. You're trying to learn. No, I need you to stop crying. It's time to go inside. it's fine that they're feeling those things. You should feel those things. That's healthy and normal. So instead of saying it's, just a bad feeling, we switch it to comfortable versus uncomfortable. Comfortable feelings are your brain giving you a feeling to say, hey, I like this. This needs to happen more. This is good. The uncomfortable feelings are your brain telling you something's wrong here, pay attention to it. I like to call it the fire alarm of the brain. If the fire alarm's going off, you pay attention to it. You don't just say, I don't want to deal with that right now. The alarm's going off, pay attention. That's why you're uncomfortable. So with the kids, what I like to do is as I'm reading a story and whatever's happening in the story, the kids move from side to side. Like if the characters are more comfortable, move to this side of the room. If things are getting uncomfortable, move to this side of the room to help just establish kind of, it's not good or bad, we're just going with what feels comfortable. Then we move into what I call umbrella grouping. There are lots of ways to do this, but we tend to, with the small kids especially, stick to the basic words like, oh, are you mad or are you sad? Which is great for the base, but we want to expand that, right? So what I'll do is I'll print out emotional words or have like pictures for it, and then the kids will move around to different areas and put where they think that feeling goes. So like happy could be things like love or excited or love feelings. Mad is annoyed or irate. You'll notice under some of them the words go in different spots or they're listed in different spots because that's how emotions can be sometimes. There is no one correct answer. So like something like feeling guilty, that could be a sad feeling, but it can also be an angry feeling. It can also be a disgust feeling of I don't want to feel this way anymore. So we do that to help group those emotions to the kind of umbrella emotions that we tend to use and let them know that that moves around, that's okay. Emotions can come out in different ways, but still be that same emotion. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of feelings out there. I like to use these kind of wheels. There's many different ones. And when a kid comes to me and we're working through a problem and they say, well, I'm angry, we'll pull up this angry and then see if we can expand it to help, again, break down that basic angry into more like specific, like, well, are you feeling hostile kind of angry? Or is this more of a jealous kind of angry? And it helps them to, attach words to what they're feeling and express it. To help understand feelings more, I like to play a game called What's the Difference? Where I'll put up words that are similar in meaning, but like have that nuance. So like, what's the difference between surprised and shocked? I'll say surprised is more of an unexpected result. It's not necessarily has a connotation. It's just something happened and I'm surprised. Where like shocked tends to be more of an uncomfortable feeling, where something happened that's unexpected and it's not pleasing to me. So I'm shocked that it happened more than just surprised. Or something like envious or jealous, where envious is more about wanting what someone else has, and jealous is more about worried about losing what you have to someone else. And so it helps to find those emotions. Or like annoyed or frustrated, where annoyance is more something's interfering with what you're doing, and frustrated is more things are not happening the way you want them to. And so by doing that, we can start talking about what sparks those feelings, and it helps when kids are trying to problem solve, especially our trauma kids. They don't have the tools for it, so it helps give them a set of tools to be more expressive, to help get them more regulated, and to grow that emotional vocabulary. I like to do feelings faces. I printed these out for you guys and then left them in the printer. But what it is I'll get a face, and it's just a blank face, and it has like hair and details, and then the kids will all get a face, and then previously I'll cut out eyes, mouths, nose shapes, eyebrows, and then we'll read a story or talk about activity. It's really effective if the kids get to share a story, and then as the kids go and are telling the stories, other kids will react and try to make faces to match what they think the feeling is. And this helps to identify when I'm annoyed, what face is that? When I'm surprised, what face is that? So it helps them to realize what they're going through and to recognize it in other people. If they're struggling with it, because again, nuance is a thing, if they're struggling with it, I try to really emphasize. So like, oh, well, if he's grumpy, I'm feeling grumpy, what am I feeling right now? And I'll make that face at them to try to emphasize, like, eyebrows are really important. Your nose wrinkling can be really important. The mouth shape is really important. And that just helps, again, associate feelings with words. Or feelings with, words. I do allow journaling in my class. Every day when the kids come in, they do 5 minutes of just free journal. I'll give a prompt. But the idea here is to give them a chance to use the tools that I'm giving them to document whatever they're thinking, whatever they're feeling. I make sure that it's not necessarily graded, right? What they're writing is up to them. It's personal, it's private. If they want to share, they are welcome to, but I don't force them to share because we don't want to associate negative feelings with sharing. When I express myself, it should be a good thing, not I have to do this or I'm going to get in trouble. Because then they grow up not wanting to share things. Parents can be mad at this. When I say I don't read what they write, they're like, well, how do you know they're writing what they're supposed to be? And I'm like, well, it's up to them. Like, it's just 5 minutes of journaling. It's not a big issue. So just let them have that. If the parents want to read it, that's up to them, but the kids are never forced to share in my class. And then we also do Feelings Fridays, where they have a workbook full of emotion words, and on each page is a different word, and as they go through, they can start doing these activities to, again, reestablish emotional vocabulary, let them learn more about what it means to be jealous, what it means to be irate, and so that they're more able to understand it when they're feeling it, understand what their body does, and express it. The next part is once you understand the emotions, what do I do now? It's great that I know I'm frustrated. Now what do I do? So we do a lot of self-regulation exercises. Miss Michelle will get into more with her mindfulness activities. It goes hand in hand. We're a holistic school, so it's about all of it. So there's a lot of breathing exercises. One of my favorites is the snoring bear, where the kids just get to sound like a bear sleeping, and we go, and it's just really fun to make that noise, and the kids get to practice the type of breathing. When they're frustrated, it's great because they get that frustration out while also practicing these deep breathing, calming them down, helping to regulate. I love to do the apple picking thing because it becomes less, especially when we're trying to problem solve and it's a lot of talking, it lets them stand up and do something. And so you pretend you're picking apples and you stretch and then you squeeze the apples to get the juice out. And it's all internalized, but it's just a way to take emotions and put them out and give us something to do to help calm down. The kids love blowing the balloon. I'll get a little tool, and as we are talking about something like anger or sad, each time they'll say something that makes them feel that way, and we'll pump the balloon, and we'll pump the balloon. And we keep pumping it, and it gets bigger and bigger, and eventually it pops. And then we kind of say, well, what does that have to do with your feelings? Well, if I'm mad and it's just getting bigger and bigger, eventually it's going to pop, and it's going to explode. And then so we'll figure out, well, now that this balloon is filling, what do I do now? And the kids will be like, well, let it go. So I let it go, and it flies all over the place, and they think it's hilarious. But the lesson is, like, even if I'm letting it go, I'm still making a big mess. I'm no longer in control of what's happening to me. And so then it becomes about, well, I let it out in little bits at a time, right? If I'm mad, I talk about it, and some of the air comes out. If I'm upset, I'm going to share what's happening, and some of the air comes out. Again, taking these kind of cerebral ideas, making it visual, so that they understand a little more. So the next part of Marshall Rosenberg's thing is the universal needs. This is kind of based off the Maslow pyramid there, but instead of more broad terms, we narrow it down. A universal need is something that is universal. So I don't need ice cream. That's what I want. What I need is something like fun or pleasure or enjoyment. So what we want is to teach them, similar to that emotional vocabulary, to teach them the vocabulary of needs, to know that everyone needs some level of safety. Everyone needs some level of play. The reason we teach this is because we then go into how emotions are caused by needs. You have these universal needs in your brain. Everyone has them. We all share them. And when those needs are met, you feel good. You get those comfortable feelings. But when a need goes unmet is when your brain starts releasing uncomfortable feelings. And that's why, is because you have that need that needs to be met. By teaching this, it helps to understand why they're feeling what they're feeling, but also it gives us a baseline for connection, right? If it's a universal need, I need safety as much as you need safety. So when you're upset about something because you're not feeling safe, I know what that feels like. I have that need for safety too, and when it's not met, I also know it doesn't feel good. And so it helps us connect and build a baseline. And that will come back into problem solving later. To help teach needs, I'll do a few activities. I love my filling the water bottle one because it's really simple. All the kids at our school carry water bottles around all day. They lose them constantly. It's a struggle. But they all have different water bottles. And so I'll talk about, we all have a water bottle. They're different shapes, they're different sizes, but we all have one. What does it take to fill this water bottle? Oh, it takes 2 cups. How about this one? Oh, 16 ounces, which maybe 2 cups. I teach feelings. And so they'll have those different shaped water bottles. And I'll say, well, even though this one needs more to fill it, I still need that too. We just have different ways to get that filled. The idea behind that is to show, again, we all have needs. I don't have a high need for friendship. I can talk to one person for 5 minutes and say, hey, we're good for 2 weeks now. Where someone else's need for friendship might be much higher. And so they're like, I want to check in with my friends every day. I want to see how they're doing. Both of those are fine, but we both still need that friendship. What it takes to fill yours is going to be too much for me. What it takes to fill mine might be too little for you. And that's okay. It's about recognizing we both need that. Here's what your level's at. Here's what my level's at. I also can't recommend this enough. The Grok game, just Grok it. It is a series of cards. There's 2 decks. There's a deck of feelings and a deck of needs. And that's all it comes with. And there are so many different games you can play, but one I like to do is the basic, where you tell a story. All the cards are passed out among the kids. They get a stack of feelings and a stack of needs, and then you tell a story, a personal story. But while you're telling it, you try not to share your side, like your internalized version of it. You don't share what you think or felt. You just share what happened, and then the kids will go through and say, well, maybe you felt this. Did you feel this? And then you go, oh yeah, hey, that one works for me. I don't know if I felt that time. To help, again, recognize, well, maybe you're feeling this. And then once we've established, I'll pick a few that match the feeling, and then the kids will go through and try to match it with a need. Well, if you're feeling anxious, why? What need was not met there? Did you need reassurance? Did you need connection? Did you need power? And so it helps to establish that connection between feelings and needs while also recognizing it in other people. It's really great when the kids start to tell stories, and you know how like a 5-year-old is telling a story, it goes nowhere, but the kids are always like, hey, you felt this, and they go, yeah, you felt that, no! And it's great to watch as they kind of recognize that other people can recognize what they're feeling. The next part into the feelings, needs, and observations is the observations. This is tricky because we're judgmental creatures. It's normal, it's natural. We do things that are judgments without even realizing we're judging. So we want to make sure that we're focusing on observations to create a shared reality, to make sure we're all on the same page. So that would be the difference between he's being mean and, oh, he said that my hair looked silly, right? One is a judgment. It's, he said this thing and I think it's mean, versus the observation, which is he said these words. Whenever the kids are struggling with that, I'll say, if I was a camera, what would I see? If I was watching this on film, what would be on the film? To help kind of teach that we want to say what is actually happening. That way it's shared across the board, and both parties have agreed, hey, this is what happened. To help teach this, I play a game called Binocular Buddies, where they get to make binoculars out of tubes. It's a fun chance to have some art in the class. And then I'll start describing something, but again, I'll try to use judgment-free words. So I'll describe colors, shapes, textures, and as they look around, they're trying to find out what it is. Or conversely, you could say it the other way around, where you describe things only using judgments and see how difficult it is to find exactly what someone's talking about. It's basically I Spy, just with the added little touch of binoculars. I also like the puppy problem. If you can or able, bring a puppy to class. And the kids are going to go nuts over it. And then try to have them document exactly what the puppy is doing. Because they'll want to say, oh, it's cute. Oh, it's playing. Oh, look how fun that is. Which is great. It's not bad, but we still want to try to say, well, what does that mean? It's cute. What's cute about it? Oh, look, it's playing. Do you know it's playing? And so they describe instead, try to describe as accurately as they can what the puppy is doing, not what they think the puppy is doing. And that leads into the fourth part of Rosenberg's model, which leads to compromise. So I've expressed myself. I understand what I'm feeling. I know how to say it, what it is. I know why I'm feeling it, I know the need, I know the event that triggered it. Now it's time to solve the problem, to say, I need to get my need met. This leads to the request and compromise phase. We never want to make a demand. We don't want to make it with the kids because, you go up to a 12-year-old and tell them, hey, you need to do this. They're going to go, no, I'm not. So we don't want to make demands. We want to make requests. We want to recognize, I have this need that's unmet. I feel this way about it because this thing happened. How do we solve that going forward? And then because we've talked about recognizing in others, they also get the chance to say, well, I have this need that's going unmet. We both have this need that's unmet. What do we do to fix this? And so we start to make requests to get the need met. To help teach this, I like to play toothpick and gumdrop structures, where, it's basic STEM activity. You get to build structures using toothpicks and gumdrops. And so I'll have the kids group up and do that, and then we'll do it again a second time. But this time, I'll give them specific instructions. So this person, you can only use purple gumdrops. This person, every shape you make has to be a triangle. And so they all have these particular things that they need to do while also working together with others who also have their thing they need to do to build a working structure. Another one I like to do is the poker chips, where I'll tell kids, hey, you have to make this amount of money, and then divide up what we've got. Certain chips will be worth certain colors and there are certain amounts, and they have to work with each other, passing them out, passing them around, trading to get the amount they need. Then we go through it again, and this time they're giving specific rules. Hey, you can only use red chips. You can only give away your blue chips. And so then they have to start talking more about how to get this need met, how to request it from other people, how to give to other people, to help reinforce, to fix this problem, we have to work together. It's not us versus, or it's not me versus you, it's us versus this problem. Teaching them that fighting is okay as long as we're working towards something. We're trying to get each other's needs met. And so I end it all by going back to the flipping your lid thing. It's great because it helps kids contextualize when they're having a meltdown, when they're freaking out about something, to say, oh, well, here's your brain, here's what we do. But then I'll take it, since my cortex is flipped here, how do I get that back? Well, I can start thinking, what am I feeling? What do I need? Why do I need it? Or what made that happen? How do I fix it? To be like, well, you're freaking out here. What are you feeling? One step at a time. Oh, I'm super angry. He did this and this. Okay, what are you feeling? Well, I'm mad. Why are you mad? I wanted to do that. Well, why does that make you mad? Because I want to play? Oh, so you need play. Well, why can't you play? Oh, well, he pushed me down. Okay, why did that stop you from playing? He put his hands on me and shoved me. He pushed me. Okay, that would make me want to be mad too. And then finally, well, what are you going to do now? How are you going to talk to him? And so all this can help us take these cerebral things and make them more able to be talked about, to help get the kid from freaking out to thinking about solving the problem, helping to give the tool needed to go forward and solve their problem, especially with trauma kids who they don't feel the things the same way we do, or they don't perceive the world necessarily the same way. So it helps conceptualize that idea and get them back to their baseline so they can start moving forward. And that's it for me. I'll give it to Ms. Michelle to talk about mindfulness.
I love this because we talk about this every day at work, yet I still feel like I'm gaining something listening to the two of them talk. So mindfulness, I have been deeply passionate about this since I was a young child. I actually used to ask already in kindergarten when I noticed I lacked self-esteem, where do we learn how to be kind and work together and be a better person? One of my, I don't know if I'd say mentor, but someone that I'm really interested in researching is Wayne Dyer. And he talks about kindness, which I think kindness and mindfulness, the whole trauma and idea of healing and social emotional learning is to be kind. It is not just the giver or the receiver who benefit. It's also an observer. So all three, the person receiving the kindness, the person giving it, and if somebody in the back of an area just sees it, all of their serotonin is raised. And when I teach mindfulness to children, I discuss this because when I fall, I'm not going to wonder if you're the top math student. I'm not going to say, oh, but I don't like the way you dress. No, thank you, I don't want your help getting up, right? It's those non-cognitive skills that we want to learn about, and mindfulness really focuses on that. And what it is it's being aware in the present moment, what is happening, and how am I feeling? So only in this moment, not what happened yesterday, what might happen tomorrow, but being in my present moment and having an open heart and an open mind about it. So it takes a child out of what is bothering them, like Mr. Robbie was just talking about. I guess I could call you just Robbie with adults. But what Robbie is talking about. And it's, so why am I feeling this way? And the first step is take a deep breath, right? A child comes up screaming, and we don't know, was it a bumblebee? Was it that somebody pulled your hair? It could be a variety of situations. And so the first thing they know is take a deep breath. So we'll look at the child, and usually I just model it. And by the time of where we are now, in our 4th month of school, they know us well enough that when they come up to us, let's breathe together. First, let's get you calm, right? And even just before I came up here, and just that deep breath really even helped to center my own anxiety, right? So I did picture you all as children, because I thought in the classroom, I don't get nervous walking up, but I was watching all your expressions like, oh gosh, here we go. So taking a notice of my senses. How do I feel? What am I tasting? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? Right? Taking in all these senses, because that is what brings me into my present moment. So these are the tools that I can effectively calm my body, calm my mind, and then I can then take on that next step. Now, how do I solve what is going on? We do underestimate what children are going through. And by teaching something like mindfulness or social emotional learning, we're really preparing not just for a school environment or the classroom environment, but for life. I have not met one student that said, that breathing, it didn't work for me. Learning about the other techniques that we learn in mindfulness, it's never benefited me, and I love that. So what I thought is trying an exercise together. It's just taking a few deep breaths. What I love is this is becoming so much more mainstream, right? Breathing is automatic. Nobody has to tell me, oh, don't forget, breathe in, breathe out. No, it's automatic. But I do have the power to affect it. Whether I'm anxious and breathing quickly, well, now my heart rate will rise. Now I'll start to become more anxious. But if I just stop and breathe, I can use it at any time. Going to sleep, before a test, getting my food, right? We're approaching lunchtime, maybe we're getting hangry. So the block breath is also known as the square breath. So what I thought is I'm going to start with the base, and it's just using 4 seconds. And it's 4 steps, so it'll be easy to memorize. It's also in your handout. So what we'll do is we'll breathe in together to the count of 4. You'll then hold your breath for the count of 4. And I'll be using my hand motions just to help along and counting for you. Then you'll breathe out to the count of 4, hold it for the count of 4. Now, studies have shown that it only takes 30 seconds to lower your heart rate. It also lowers your blood pressure. So within 30 seconds, you can already start to regulate your emotions. So what I'd like you to do is, with your feet on the floor, just getting comfortable. I always recommend to students, feel the back of your chair. So I'm bringing in your senses here, right? Touch your feet to the floor, touch your back to the chair. It also makes you move a little bit. So if you are sitting and starting to get comfortable, you've now readjusted, which also helps regulate a child. So paying attention to your breath. If you'd like, you may touch your belly and your chest. I guess I can use abdominal area with adults. If you are breathing out of your chest, that is shallow breathing. We really want to get into our core with our breath. So when we breathe in, we'd like to feel our belly rise first. And then we just breathe out. And I'm going to ask that you observe, how are you feeling right now? What is your breath like? And then I'll ask you again when we're finished. So let's go ahead and breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Last, breathe in. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Release. 2, 3, 4. And hold it. 2, 3, 4. And go ahead and just start to breathe regularly. And instead of asking my children who doesn't feel better, or I'll say, does everyone feel better? Now I will say, dimming the lights. I would never have classroom lights that are this vibrant, although we want everyone here to stay awake. But I do dim my lights in my classroom. I also use aromatherapy. So you can imagine how relaxed that environment can become. So the outcome is mostly successful. There's always going to be that doubter, right? Those are the fun ones because we really want to teach them the most. So that is our box breathing, and you can use this anytime. I used it last night to fall asleep, and I don't remember getting to my second breath. But you can use it on an airplane. You can use it anytime. I actually have not found a place where it would not work, especially when I'm snorkeling, because I get nervous in the water. So the benefits. So Harvard Publishing Company has showed that deep breathing actually has this exchange of air. So the incoming of the oxygen, the outgoing of the carbon dioxide shows a benefit on our body, but also our mind. I think I switched to page. But the benefits, they come down to our academic performance, to our sleep, to our calm feeling. But then it also gets into our brain. And our accreditation team asked us, how do we chart how children get happy, or that they're happy? How do we chart that mindfulness works? And I loved that our principal had the answer, we see it. You can tell when someone's happy. And then I brought in, what Robbie said. You see it in their body language, in their face. So, but I do like in mindfulness anything I teach to have some scientific background. So if a parent comes up and says, it's a little woo-woo what you're doing, I can say, well, here's a lot of studies and research that support what we're teaching. So neuroimages of the brain have showed your gray, dense area has grown in the area of compassion, of awareness, and of being more flexible and overall well-being. So just the fact that our brain is showing in images that there's a benefit makes me feel more secure when parents come up with questions. It also shows that students have a better reaction to stress. So that alone, again, doesn't just stop at school. It goes far into our life of how we deal with things moving forward. It gives our children emotional regulation. It helps to thicken the cerebral cortex, and I know Robbie had spoke of that as well. This is for our perception and our reasoning. So it would fit into every area of life, how it can benefit our brain health. Professor Brene Brown, she went on tour for her Rising Strong book. And through her tour, she started to give research as to what are the coping mechanisms that first responders, paramedics, doctors, people on the forefront, even the military. Actually, I just read an article 2 days ago that the military uses the box breath. And that's also just for emotional trauma that they've experienced. But what I loved is she said, there must be an underlying core connection. And sure enough, it is breathing and mindfulness. So I have yet to find any negative research on what we're all talking about here today. The only negative is how sad that some children have to experience something so deeply that we work harder to get them out of it. So, teaching mindfulness to children, make it fun. So whatever we're doing, I'll take them out for a walk and I'll say, okay, I'm gonna open your door to awareness. Today when we're walking, I want you to look for a butterfly, something flying. And within a minute, you'll hear all the kids, look at that, look at this. But if you're not looking for it, are you going to see it? So I'll talk to them. What does the ground feel like on your feet? When you're walking this lap, I want you to feel the ground. Are you on concrete? Is it hard? Is it cold? The lava, what does it feel like? So now I'm opening your awareness so you're walking mindfully. When you're eating, something I've learned from our Japanese teacher is the mindful eating, to chew your food. What is the texture and the taste? So mindfulness can be implemented into everything we do, but we want to make it enjoyable for children to where they look forward to participating in our exercises. Again, it helps us manage our stress. We are focusing on children and students, but I also think it affects us teachers. I see it in my own life. I see it in my home life, in my classroom, and in every environment I go into. Teaching the children, they also go home and bring it there. So I'll hear parents say, gosh, as we ate dinner last night, my child was mentioning, the mashed potatoes taste different. They recognized the chunks of the potato, or that I whipped them smoother and what they liked. And then it becomes a conversation. And I'm amazed how many families don't sit around a table and eat together anymore. And food is a bonding experience. We all do it. We all need nutrition. What a beautiful way to come together. We also now have a gardening program where they took lily kois off a vine and made juice. So not only did they take the farm to table, but then they delivered it, and we all accepted with a smile. So it was a bonding experience, and now when they started planting new plants, it's, what are we gonna make with this? How are we going to unite and come together? And again, I incorporate that in with mindfulness. What a thoughtful gesture. And again, you were a giver. Now you just promoted serotonin, and the receiver got it, and all the other kids watching it wanted to be a part of it. So here, some people go to get medicated, right? When we're low on our serotonin, that's what our antidepressants are doing for us. But what if we just started to bring in mindful kindness? Couldn't we make a difference? So in your handout, we have some examples, and it was really hard to keep it simple because like I just shared, you can incorporate mindfulness into everything. So there is a short summary, but the balloon belly breathing, again, it's children can lie down, they can sit in a chair. Again, if they're coming up to you upset, you can even have them stand. I always like the placement because then there's touch, right? Put your own hand on your belly and your chest. Feel what's happening. Can you feel your heartbeat? And now start to breathe. Breathe into your belly. Breathe out. The tone that you use makes a huge impact as well. The food savoring exercise we had talked about. What are you tasting? Can you smell your food before you begin? And you can bring in digestion, right? When you talk about a lemon and you're cutting it open, what do you feel happening in your mouth? Picture that. And now your digestion has started as well. Your happy place, this is one of my favorite. I have students lie down, and we are fortunate at our school, we do have yoga mats for the kids when they come to mindfulness. They also use it in our PE and other classes as well. I do ask that they don't play with them, but then sometimes that's fun too. But I have them lie down. I'll count slowly to get them in that relaxed place. And then I help them to discover where is their happy place. So sometimes I'll lead them on a path. I will not mention what it's made out of. Are you walking on dirt in a mountain? Some go to space, which is really cool when they do want to share. Some go to a beach. Some go to their own bed. What a beautiful, safe place, right? I did change it to happy place from safe place because there was a child with some trauma issues that when they went there, they started crying in the meditation. But walking through that, we gained a lot of healing. Well, they gained a lot of healing, and I was able to help them walk through. Why did that affect you? So the happy place, and then once we're all finished and we start to wiggle our fingers and toes and come back to where we are at this moment, They get to share it, and then I'll teach them, you can go here anytime. Here you just stayed on your mat. But anytime you're feeling overly excited, it doesn't have to be a negative emotion. Think of getting on a roller coaster. Your heart might be racing so fast. Take a deep breath and think of your safe or happy place. Listening to your surroundings. That is a wonderful tool to get into the most present moment. So, what is the closest sound you hear? It could be my own breathing. It could be my neighbor tapping their chair. There's always someone making noise, right? And then what is the farthest sound you hear? Perhaps you hear a bird. There's an occasional siren that we hear passing by. But it brings us to the present moment, which is the main element of mindfulness, being in the here and the now. Gratitude journaling. I love that SEL and mindfulness will combine sometimes without knowing, and we're writing on the same topics or providing some of the same topics in class. So writing. And I always tell the students, don't pay attention to your spelling. Just be free. Let your pen flow. And maybe you're not going to stay on topic, and something will lead to just papers. I have one child who will go home and continue to write and bring 2 to 3 pages the following day. It's a beautiful tool to let out our emotions. I also save them for the entire year. If a student wants me to keep them, they leave their paper full. If they want them private, they fold them in half. If they want me to dispose of them, they fold it one more time. But at the end of the year, I'll give it to them and then I'll say, is there a common theme? Do you notice something you've been writing about, that maybe something's been bothering you, but you're not aware that every week, gosh, it really bothers me that my neighbor's dog barks every night. And maybe after a year of catching up, wow, that's why I'm not sleeping well, right? It can help us with that healing process. Happy thoughts, this is also affirmations. If my student is working on a positive goal, a lot of times I will offer, do you want me to laminate it and you can hang it on your bathroom mirror? Because I hope that's somewhere we're at least twice a day, right? Brush your teeth in the morning and night and read that affirmation. But maybe we go to the bathroom and we wash our hands at that same mirror and sink. And now I've read it a 3rd time. Talk about achieving our goals when I keep reading it and it becomes my thoughts, right? My natural thoughts. Yoga, the mind-body connection. And again, yoga can bring out different emotions in different students. Not all of these will work for everybody. So finding where their strength is or what is helping them. The body scan. Again, it's walking through a guided visualization. I always start at the top of the head. You breathe down through the body and at the toes. And it's a rooting exercise. It really brings your breath, your energy down, and to become more settled. And the last one I have listed here is the block breath, which is the one that we experienced at the beginning of the mindfulness section. And I appreciate you letting us share all of our passions with all of you. I do know we have a question and answer time. I don't know what our time is.
Does anyone have any questions for any of us? Yeah.
When you were speaking about trauma, and knowing that some students are coming to school with situations at home that maybe create trauma for them, do you do any current education around ACEs or trauma impact?
You know, we talk about it a lot. We haven't done it yet. We do talk about the fact that we should do that. We do have really close relationships with our parents, and we do know every story of every child in our school.
Just through like parenting conferences, or how do you do that?
We are outside before school, after school, every day, talking to our parents. When we see something going on, we'll talk to the parents, hey, this is going on. We try to find out whether it's, usually the parents are willing, right? But we try to find out, not probing a child, but hey, what's going on? Tell me more, very non-specific questions, but usually a parent will tell us what's going on. But we want to start doing more education. It's not something we've started yet, but that's kind of our goal. Yeah.
What you're doing is so inspiring, and I can see you're just taking it even
do think it's like 3 minutes till lunch, so, yeah, we'll be here if anyone wants to come up and ask us a question. But thank you all for coming today. We really appreciate